Hello. Just before we begin, this talk is about mental health, and so it might bring some things up. This is a list of resources if anybody needs them. But that being said, if anything does come up and somebody does need to leave or have a bit of time for themselves, please be respectful of that. That being said, I do aim for this to be a light and jovial talk. We're not going to go into anything too deep, but I just want to be respectful of people's various needs. These might be a bit small on screen, but you just Google mental health resources, and they're out there. Just that being said, if anybody is struggling, there is help. Please reach out. We're being scientific with this, so let's set some terms. TTRPG means tabletop role-playing game. Effectively, a shared storytelling game where you have some fun with your friends. GM, or DM, which is me, a person running the game and trying to control the chaos. The BBEG is the big evil bad guy. And TPK means total party kill, and hopefully that won't happen tonight. Start with a quote. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Now, some of you might be harboring under the illusion that this is a talk about mental health, and I have no idea where you got this notion from. This is a talk about slaying dragons. You need the right equipment. Everybody has dragons they must slay. Some people have more, some people have less, but it's often easier to fight them not on your own. This particular beautiful bugalug, also just a comment, not all, some of the artwork I've stolen from Google, some of them are stolen from the Monster Manual, and others, like this beautiful wee bugalug, was commissioned, and an actual artist was paid for this work. I'm a big believer in paying artists for what they do. But this beautiful wee boy is called Matinga. It's particularly personal to me as they've been plaguing me for several years now. Matinga saps my energy, takes my creativity, and just generally makes life a lot harder. So, how do I fight Matinga? Cognitive behavioral therapy. We are creatures of narrative. We tell stories. We love stories. We see stories where there aren't any. But we can change the stories that we tell about ourselves. Cognitive behavioral therapy allows us to do this. Effectively, not to go into the neuroscience of it, it is effectively looking at the way that we think, noticing thought patterns and amending them to be more malleable and productive and more what they want. There are several studies that show that playing TTRPGs is very good at this. However, more studies are needed. But enough with that. We're here to talk about dragons. This particular dragon is called loneliness. Loneliness wants to isolate you. It wants to cut you off from your support networks. It wants to, get you alone. And when it has you, you can just imagine what kind of damage a single dragon can do to a lonely adventurer. What is the best tactic for taking out loneliness? Community. We're social animals. We need other people. More than that, it's a survival mechanism. Humans, we're not good on our own, but having a group of like-minded people that we can share interests with and have fun and unwind, but more than that, open up to, trust, work through things. It's invaluable. I've been on many campaigns where a well-balanced party has saved my life. I often play a rogue or a bard, and you need a good cleric or a paladin to heal you if you're down. You need a good sort of frontline fighter like a barbarian or a fighter to take and absorb those blows. No one can survive on their own. Together, well, loneliness never stood a chance. This beautiful wee boy is called low self-esteem. It saps you of your feeling of personality and self-worth. To be personal, I suffer from this guy too. When I first came to one of these nerd nights and saw people speaking, I thought, I can do that. And then I emailed, and they emailed back saying, would love to have you. So I started the process, and then suddenly all these thoughts start mulling about. Oh, why should you talk? Why are you? You're not a PhD. You don't know these things. Even though you've experienced them, have been researching this stuff for years and have often chatted with your friends for literally hours, and they're only giving you 15 minutes, but whatever. Why should I be on this stage more than anybody else? It's a tough question. How do we beat low self-esteem? Confidence. Stuff in the real world is hard. Real world issues, they're big. They're scary. They're often challenging and don't have simple solutions. In fantasy, you can do anything. Cast spells, fight monsters, have friends. In the fantasy world, it opens up possibilities that don't exist in the real world. But here's a little trick. Your brain finds it very difficult to tell the difference. A win is a win, whether in the real world or fantasy. Overcoming challenges releases the good chemicals, and your brain doesn't really care whether or not it's in a room with a few candles and friends and dice, or whether it's, in the real world, getting on stage, talking in front of a whole room full of people about something that you're passionate about. A win is a win. Creativity. Thank you, particularly proud of that one. You're smart, really smart. You know a lot of stuff. You just don't often get opportunities to practice it or prove it, or you're often very limited in how you're allowed to express that. In TTRPGs, you're given many opportunities in order to express yourself. And not only that, but learn how you express yourself. You learn how you face different challenges, whether you are a run and hide type of person or whether you are run directly at the bad guy and just hope for the best type of person. And yes, the world takes all sorts. But at the end of the day, learning who you are as a person is difficult. Learning how you think is difficult. Learning how you face particular problems is difficult. But given an opportunity where, once a week or once every 2 weeks or however often you can get the dreaded timelines to all match up, you're given that opportunity to really let yourself go and express yourself. I just put this thing in just to remind me to breathe. Don't take a break and just be in the moment. It's important to just be in the moment. People, am I right? They're often the cause of a lot of our issues and a lot of our problems. And they're people. They're hard. We all know somebody in our life that is a source of stress, a source of conflict, somebody that we just can't get along with no matter how much we try. In fantasy, in TTRPGs, there's always a bad guy. There's always somebody that you disagree with. There's always somebody that is an antagonist to you. It's no fun if there isn't. And often you aim to beat this person, but oftentimes there's another way. Whether it's negotiating with a guard to get yourself out of a tricky situation, or talking to the monarch and be like, I have no idea how those jewels got in my bag. What are you talking about? You're allowed to practice. You're allowed to figure out what your voice is, what you care about. There's an old adage of pick your battles. Oftentimes it's the DM's job to do that, but not every battle goes smoothly, and often players have a way of sidetracking you. So you have more power and more in you than you realize. Not everything has to be a fight. Life. Sometimes it just sucks. Sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes just stuff happens that gets you down. But then there are fun chemicals. Dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, oxytocin. Woo! Yeah. It's okay to have fun. It is okay to relax and spend time with friends and, experience those fun chemicals from time to time. They're good for you. They help clear your brain. They help you unwind. They de-stress, and they help the bad thoughts go away. They help, when life is tough, having something to look forward to, having a fun night that you're going to enjoy, having something that keeps you going, whatever it is immensely powerful. Adulting. I'd hope everyone in this pub tonight is an adult. Otherwise, there might be a few issues, but I won't tell if you don't. Taxes, politics, stress, work, bills, having to write a talk and prepare slides for a show that you volunteered for, and now you've got to put work into making it educational and entertaining. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with having fun with your friends. Childlike sense of whimsy is invaluable, and we don't often get chances to express that. And that one isn't always the end. But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it shines out all the clearer. It's like the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really matter. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad happened? Those are the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. I'm going to finish off with a testimonial from a friend of mine when I asked other people that I play with what their experiences of mental health are, and I thought this one was quite poignant and really, he did a lot of my work for me. When I was younger, I was extremely isolated. As an undiagnosed autistic immigrant, it was difficult to make friends, and I struggled to find the confidence to even try. Finding Dungeons and Dragons pulled me out of that isolation and out of a dark place at that time, as I found something I was passionate about and that I could share with other people. It meant I could connect with people in a way I hadn't been able to before. Now, I've been playing for over a decade, and D&D is still doing a lot of the heavy mental lifting. It's part of how I connect with my closest friends. It gives me the confidence to exist and have fun, and as a DM, I sometimes slip a little personal therapy into our sessions, which I have experienced firsthand. When I need the help working through something in real life, it's a place to focus my thoughts. It weirdly helps me sleep, as instead of being anxious late at night, I'm thinking about my next session, and it allows me to utilize an otherwise widely overactive imagination. Why think of all my anxieties when I could be thinking about how best to kill my players? When I play and DM, I forget the rest of the world exists as I go into DM mode, as my partner calls it. Yeah, I forget I need to eat, and I also forget about my worries and insecurities or troubles in the real world. And of course, because this is science, I'm citing my sources. Thank you. Of course, the obligatory question round.
Yes, thank you, Alex. We have 2 mics now, so if anyone in the front needs a mic, let me know.
I brought a source book so I can look up answers, just in case.
What is it about being a dungeon master versus just a player that makes it better for you?
I've been both, and I think it's good to have a good balance as both. As a player, you are often given challenges that you have to think laterally to overcome. As a dungeon master, you have a lot more control, but there's also a lot more chaos. You never know what your players are going to spring on you, no matter what, no matter how many hours that you've planned a session, the players will always think of something you haven't. And so I think in both aspects, as a DM and as a player, there are different approaches. And I think both of them work differently, but it's still, at the end of the day, a game with friends. And you're still thinking and you're still applying a lot of skills that you don't necessarily realize are also applicable in the real world. And so it's a give or take. Not everyone's cut out to be a DM, but for those of us that are, it's a very rewarding experience.
Thank you.
Thanks for a really interesting talk. It was great to hear. This is a bit of a logistics question, but from what I've heard, it's quite complicated being a DM. Could you give me a really brief Cliff Notes version of what it involves, and how do you prepare to do a mission or adventure?
The first time I ever played, I accidentally made my way into DMing because I was just that much of a world builder. And my practical nuts and bolts have a basic understanding of maths, have a basic understanding of improv, and learn to let go. Kill your darlings. There's going to be some things that you have prepared that you, in your head, you're like, oh, this is going to be epic, this is going to be amazing. Set up this whole big adventure, and your players are like, we want to go in there and we want to talk to this random person and we want to see what's up with them. And it's like, I don't really know the blacksmith, I haven't really fleshed out the blacksmith, but the players are really interested in the blacksmith, so now on the fly, I've got to think of a whole adventure around this blacksmith. So the biggest piece of advice is just do it. Don't worry about making mistakes. You are going to make mistakes, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to care. As long as you're having fun with friends, and as long as there is an inviting and safe environment, it's going to work out.
Hello, thank you very much. I loved your in-jokes, and I got every one of them. Yay.
Thank you.
Just as somebody who picked up D&D quite late in life and had no idea how it worked, can you give a very brief overview of how the randomness and the dice work? Because that's one of my favourite parts.
I just happen to have brought props. Bag of dice tray. Before I started the session, I rolled my handy little D20 and got a 14. So I thought, this is going to be a 14 talk. This is going to be a natural 2 answer. No. At the end of the day, the dice are just there as a mechanic that helps sort of scaffold the world. To a certain degree, there is that risk, that high of hitting a nat 20, or that sort of frustration of hitting a nat 1. You build your characters to be good at something, and you want them to succeed. And when the fighter swings their sword and misses, or when the wizard tries to get off that spell and it doesn't quite work, having that randomness of the dice, having the dice being able to tell the story alongside you helps. Like, the world is random. Like, you could walk outside and anything could happen. That's why I started with that Bilbo quote. The dice enhance the story, but at the end of the day, you're still involved. And whatever the dice roll, you have to roll with it. And, there's always something else to try. There's always another way of approaching things. There's always a second wind or another attack that you can get off that might hit. And so the dice are just there to sort of facilitate the mechanics, but at the end of the day, they're just, they're important, but they're not that important.
Any other questions? Oh, there's one over here. Oh, okay.
If someone wants to try D&D therapy for the first time, where would you recommend that they head?
If I'm allowed to have a shameless plug, there is a company that I work for called Questbook. They run games both online and in person. And so they are a good, if you don't have a local group, they're a good resource. But that's just the one I work for. There are plenty of others. And, you can find them if you look. Other than that, if you just have friends and some dice, or not even dice, just some way of inflicting randomness, like a deck of cards or a dice or a coin or whatever. Doesn't have to be D&D. There are so many different TTRPGs out there that have different randomnesses, or some that don't, some that are just there to facilitate storytelling. And I want to make something very, very clear that I don't think I have. I'm not recommending this as a substitute to therapy or medical intervention. That's why I put that, get help. I have a counsellor, I see a therapist on top of this. So please do not go away from this thinking that if you have depression or anxiety or anything like that, you just need to play a bit of D&D and you'll feel better. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it helps. And there is research to saying that it is beneficial and adds to your healing, but it is not the be-all and end-all. Ultimately, I talked about TTRPGs because that's what I do and that's what I'm passionate about. But whether it's sports, whether it's a knitting circle, whether it's a book club, what I'm advocating is socializing and just having something that connects you with other people and allows you that time to be yourself and express yourself and learn about yourself and learn about other people and engage in the world deliberately and with forethought. TTRPGs just happen to be a particularly good way of doing that. There are plenty of resources online, plenty of, there's so many, this is just one of like 20 books that I own that have the rules in them. There are games that are like 1 or 2 sheets of paper. It's about exploring what's out there and finding what fits best for you and the group of people that you want to associate with.
There was one over here, wasn't there?
Thanks, Alex. Your talk tonight was really interesting. One thing that you mentioned was that the brain can't tell which is true or not true.
Yes.
And I understand that concept. It's like manifestation, right? So when things don't go well within TTRPG, and if that was happening in high frequency more than you'd like, is there a way that you cope? Do you have to have a coping mechanism?
It's a social game, and so if it is not going how you want, if you're having more negative experiences than positive, that's something. Talk to your party about. Talk to the DM. Talk to the people that you're playing with about your experiences. Some of my best experiences ever playing are when my characters have been almost killed, if not killed outright. You become very invested in the story. You become very invested in the characters that you play, in the world that you're playing in. And oftentimes what I find is that when you experience negative experiences within the game, your character dies, a village burns down, the princess that you went to rescue was actually a dragon, that having that negative experience and experiencing the emotions that come with that aren't a bad thing. I think as a society we are very allergic to negative emotions, and playing TTRPGs, what I found is that they are a way that you can, I hesitate to say build up a resilience to them, but they are a way that you can experience them and know that at the end of the day, whatever happens in the story, whatever happens in the game, you have a support network of people that want to spend several hours a week with you. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what happens in the game. It doesn't matter what happens to your character, what happens to your world. What matters is what happens between you and the group of people that you care about. And I would say that having negative experiences in the game don't have to be negative experiences in real life. And if they are, then that is something to explore and to think about and to maybe talk about with the people around you. Ultimately, if they are an excuse for you to connect with another human being, that's good.